You seem like a really good dad, and it's a crazy thing to say.
That's the greatest compliment you can give me.
Can I tell you, man? Like, I don't look at you as like a dad, and I don't look at Joe as a dad. I absolutely don't look at Joe as a dad. I really don't. I look at Joe. I don't look at Joe as the way anyone else looks at Joe.
Why is that?
I look at him as a moron. Like, I really do. I honestly do. My favorite thing Joe Rogan's ever said to me in the world is he said one time, he goes, can you imagine if we could throw fish 10 feet in the air and they started flying? How many fish do you think we'd have?
What?
And I could not stop laughing. And that is who Joe Rogan is for me for the rest of my life.
That's what makes Rogan a genius. You know what I mean?
That's Joe Rogan for the rest of my life.
What makes Rogan a genius is that Rogan comes up with this shit that you're like, wow, yeah, I never really fucking thought about that. He thinks about shit that
he likes to go deep.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate him for 1 second, because I don't think anyone knows him. Like, and it's the number one question that gets asked to me is like, yo, what's Joe Rogan like? And I go, you'll know. I can't explain it to you. He's the sweetest guy in the world, and he's very curious. He's one of the most curious guys, and you met him at a very young age. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know, like, the transformation, because we could talk about the different outfits he wears since you've known him. From he wore the what was the fighting outfit? The
Affliction.
And now he dresses like Cam Hanes.
Unfortunately, we all went through that affliction phase, man. I wish we could erase that fucking period from the internet. But when we first bought the UFC, the company was based in New York. So I had to fly out there and clean out the offices. So I had to determine what I was going to ship back to Vegas and what I was going to throw away. Mm-hmm. So there's a fucking room of just tapes everywhere. So I'm popping all these tapes in the VCR, right? And I pop in the Keenan Ivory Wayans show. He had his own talk show.
Yeah.
And he has Joe Rogan on, the Fear Factor guy.
I know this clip.
Right?
Keep going.
So Joe Rogan is talking about, he gets into UFC, he says, and you're into this UFC stuff, huh? Like, UFC wasn't a fucking thing.
Right.
It was a cult following, and all this shit. Everybody saw one, and then it sort of disappeared. So Rogan starts talking, and he's fucking, he knows everything about the sport. And then he starts talking about how UFC fighters would beat the fuck out of all these celebrities, that do martial arts movies and shit. And he's breaking down what they would fucking do to him. And I'm like, this guy's fucking great.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what I need. I need somebody that knows the sport, but is in that fucking Hollywood world too. And at that time, Fear Factor was a massive show.
Yeah.
Right? It was massive on network television. And I'm like, this is the fucking guy. This is the guy I need. And I don't remember how we ended up reaching out, but I reached out to him somehow. We started to talk. We hit it off. And I wanted him to come in and commentate. And, we're fucking bleeding money.
Yeah.
Bleeding money. So Rogan comes in, and Rogan says, so let me get this straight. You want me to cover the sport that I love the most in the world, sit in the best seats in the house, and talk about, I'll do it for fucking free. Rogan came in and did like the first 13 events for free.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And he and I have had this fucking, amazing relationship. Rogan and I don't have this relationship where we talk every fucking day. We talk when we need to talk.
Yeah.
And anytime that I've ever needed him to do something, he's done it and been there. Anytime he's ever needed anything from me, I've done it and been there. And if you look at how the UFC has grown and how Rogan has grown together,
incredible
at the same time, it's been an incredible relationship, and I consider him the greatest to ever do it. Fuck all these guys that have ever done any type of commentating on combat sports before this.
Yeah, no,
Rogan is by far, and this is the other thing that I loved about Rogan. Every time you would see him on camera, right? And he would be talking about the fights that night. You knew. You felt it in your fucking soul.
Yeah.
This guy was not a paid talking head. This motherfucker loves this shit.
The passion.
And this is 100%. It came through in every event that we did.
He's clearly a massive, genuine, authentic fight fan, period. Like, he loves fights. When he works out at home, if he's caught up on UFC, he's watching Muay Thai. He's watching, like, it's just fight. You know, he lives fights. And one of the craziest things I've seen, like, I'm a sports fan. I also, you know, as somebody who, like, I love football too. Like, you grow up kind of with an affection for certain broadcasters, right?
Right.
Like how they call the game.
Yeah.
And then with the way that things have evolved, you sometimes learn about how these guys prepare to call a game. You know, you'll see, like, in football, they'll land earlier in the week. They have media day. They hang out with the players and they prep. And they have to, you know, to call a game. There's a lot of moving parts, right? And so I'm working with Joe a few times that we're doing shows that are basically attached to UFC fights. You know, so we go in and you know, he's with another guy who's going to call the fight. I think back then it was Goldie? Goldie, yeah. So, and you're seeing Goldie with, like, his binder, you know, like, preparing, doing all this stuff. And I'm with Joe and I'm like, where's your stuff? And he's like, oh, I don't have that. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's all up here. And I go,
Rogan knows people that aren't even in the fucking UFC.
He's doing this thing where he goes, I go, what do you mean? Like, I don't understand though, but you're about to call like, you're doing a professional commentating. Like, don't you have to? He goes, here's the thing. The only thing I like, that's just fascinating to me. He's like, the only sport I like is fighting. He goes, so there's nothing cluttering up here with, like, baseball stats or golf. He's like, it's just fights. But then he's doing, like, the talking head, like, promo stuff. And they're like, okay, this fight. And he's referencing from memory, well, in UFC 221, and I'm like, wait, you're just off your dome doing this? I couldn't believe it. Goes in there, calls the whole fight, nails everything. And I'm like, I can't believe as a broadcaster that you're able to do that just off the top of your head.
And here's the other brilliant thing. Like, to go in and call fights is not easy to do.
No.
It's very hard to do. Rogan came in right off the bat and started doing it. And what was brilliant about Joe and why he was so instrumental in helping us build the sport, nobody was ever going to fucking understand the ground game. It's just you know, too complicated. Rogan would walk you through in detail. While it was happening, he would be one step ahead of the fighter, actually.
Yeah.
You know, as it was taking place, walking you through, and this is what's going to happen if he can get over here and tip that arm, and he's going to get him in. And Rogan would fucking lay it out. We couldn't have hired anybody else that would have done it. You know what I mean? It was just when there's these weird things in life, and I'm sure you guys could lay out 100 things that played out in a weird way in your life.
Yes.
That have you sitting here on this fucking couch today.
Yeah.
And Rogan and I was supposed to pop that fucking tape in. I was supposed to see Rogan.
Sure.
Rogan was supposed to be on Fear Factor, and then I would and then I would see it. What are the odds that he's on Ivory Keenan Wayans? And what's the odd that Keenan would ask him these questions? I mean, when you start breaking life down in these little things, you know what I mean? It's just like
a magic moment.
Fucking crazy. And it was meant to be. This relationship with me and Rogan and all the other things that have come together in my life and his life and other people's lives. It's fucking crazy when you think about it. But
crazy.
Rogan is the best to ever do it.
Bert and Tom and Bert. One goes topless while the other wears a shirt. Tom tells stories and Bert's the machine. There's not a chance in hell that they'll keep it clean. Here's what we call 2 bears, 1 cave.